All right, CSS Reset. This is a very interesting concept, and sometimes it gets asked quite a bit during technical interviews for front-end position. Note that it's the browser's job to take your HTML and to take your CSS and to display it, right? Different browsers, as you can imagine, may have different ways of rendering your HTML. For example, even if it is just an H1 tag, what font do we use? What's the default margin that we give to H1? What's the default spacing, padding I would give? What's the default font size or what's the default font family I should use? Notice that there are many HTML elements and it's really up to the browser's interpretation, especially if you haven't told them how much H1 or H2 or paragraph or UL or LI or image should have as its default margin or padding. It just needs to assume and come up with something. And this is why it caused so many issues, because not every browser said we're gonna all adopt this one standard. So the way to reset a lot of these different default behaviors by different browsers or different versions within the same browser, you would do what's called a CSS reset, or you would normalize and basically say, okay, look, some of the browsers, for example, you may have some default margin, default padding. I want everything to have 0 pixels as margin, 0 pixels as padding, and so forth. Of course, that's the most simplest way to reset, but there are other ways, right? So this is a whole new topic. You can read some articles about CSS Reset and how it is done. There are simple ways to do it, and one of the most basic and rudimentary way is just saying, hey, margin 0 pixel, padding 0 pixel, but it goes beyond that. You can spend a lot of time. Now, as browsers have evolved and they're more really following the standards, they're really coming together, not like the old days where Microsoft Internet Explorer kind of adopted a very different styles, where developers had to, at times, create a CSS file just for that browser or for specific versions of that browser. Now, a lot of the browsers are acting a lot nicely together. But even then, you don't want to assume, because who knows, maybe your customer A is using Chrome, another one is using Firefox, another one using Opera, and all different versions, and maybe they have different default behavior. So again, one of the common things that you should do, especially if you want to make your website or web application accessible across as many people as possible, is to do a CSS reset. So again, I'll provide some links where you can read up on it and see. But again, remember that how to do something is not as important as why you should do it. And I wanted to explain the whys behind doing a CSS reset or doing what's called CSS normalization.